It's lovely to come here and talk to you. I love the networking scene around Bristol. There's so much stuff going on. I don't actually recognise any of the faces in the audience, which is one of those different layers of technical people of all different kinds, all mingling and meshing. And my world is I don't know, is it AI? Is it chatbots? Who had heard of chatbots last year, 12 months ago? Who knew what a chatbot was? Yeah, about a quarter of you maybe. How many people know what a chatbot is now? About the same, okay. I've been building chatbots for 15 years. I actually built my first chatbot in 1982 when I was 19 on a ZX Spectrum. And I got it to answer me a little hello, how are you kind of question. Yeah. I didn't do much with it from 1982 to when I started actually doing it as a business. Around 1999, 2000, dealing with email response management systems, and then chatbots, although they weren't really called chatbots-ish. So I've seen so many waves, I've seen so many different spikes and troughs in AI, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a perspective. I cobbled some of these slides together from a presentation I did to some funding people, so some investment houses in the Far East. So I've taken out all the stuff, how do you make money? Actually, I think I left a bit about how do you make money, because the issue is, how do you make? What do you make? You know, what is the difference between this thing, a chatbot thing, and an AI thing? You know, are those two things synonymous? What's the truth? You know, do they work? Will they kill us? You know, all of this kind of stuff I'm going to try and sort of zip through as I go through these slides. So I'm going to start off with this lovely picture here. Metropolis, 1927, Fritz Lang. Yeah, this is the inside. I found this. Somebody sent it to me, and I swam about and found some more. And for me, this is really typical. This is really a good place to start a talk on AI and chatbots, because what's underneath, even the densest of black boxes, is a human. At some point, some humans decided it's a good idea to create a black box, and that lives on this part of AI, and then on the other part of AI, you've got stuff which could be called glass box. You know? And right now, we've got two people who are actually practically building AI and chatbots. Half of them are mathematicians-ish, doing the pure AI stuff. And then you've got sort of engineers and electronics people, and they're doing the applied stuff, in my humble opinion. And these two things are sort of overlapping a bit, and there's an enormous amount of money being put into chatbots around the world at the moment. Obviously not in the UK, because nobody gives us any money in the UK to do anything. You know, we have to go elsewhere, which is why I'm never rude to Americans if I know they're in the audience. You know? So what we've got right now is we've got engineers and mathematicians, but what we're missing is sort of everybody else. It's the business people. It's the people who are actually going to be replaced, maybe, or augmented, possibly, by this technology going forward. So, chatbots, rationale. Yeah, a chatbot is Siri. A chatbot is Cortana. A chatbot is an irritating thing that may pop up. You could almost even call the paperclip from early Microsoft days a chatbot. But it was rubbish, and we all knew it was rubbish, and look how well Microsoft have done, because they presented Tay, and that just went immediately wrong, because nobody was thinking about what the general public were like. Hence the picture earlier on, it's about the general public's perception. And what I put down here, this is one of the new slides, because I did sort of fudge it together a bit. I was only asked last week whether I could stand in and do this, so people are true or false. Lazy, confused, bored, paranoid. There's a privacy in there. You know, I've done a talk on privacy. I'm quite strong on that. I'm quite strong on the idea that if you have a chatbot or AI layer which is dealing with you directly, you have to be pure as the driven snow, or else we're all being raped with information. You know, and that's where we are right now. Overloaded with information. I think there's a truth in there. I like the idea that instead of having all of those kind of images, you could just have a pure, simple, like I'm talking to somebody that I know or don't know. Yeah. Anticipant, yeah? Everybody wants the chatbots to be brilliant. Everybody's hoping, like the Viv character, the fellow who started Siri and his team, that they're going to create the chatbot which is going to take over the world and become the Holly, to become the HAL 9000, you know, or whatever it might be, of the moving conversational internet. And is that going to happen? Well, if you'd asked me 2 or 3 years ago, when I was still making money, paying my bills, eating, roof over my head, building chatbots, I would have said no. But now, we've got lots more stuff in the world. And thanks to these people, VentureBeat I think they're called, if people want the slides after, just have a word with Adam and I'll give them to you. All of these things here are all developer frameworks, yeah? If you'd asked a developer, all of you are developers, as far as I understand. If you'd asked a developer 3 years ago, would you build a chatbot for a living? Would you learn how to code in AIML or ChatScript or CleverScript or a carpenter's gig from down in Exeter? You probably would have said, no, I think I'll stick to something which is a bit more fundamental, more traditional, a bit more leading edge, you know, but you probably wouldn't have said, yes, I really want to make chatbots. But now, different game. All these developing frameworks have popped up, and a lot of them are absolute tosh. Actually, I'll come to that slide in a moment, so I'll come back to being rude about all this stuff in a mo, but why I'm showing this is because it's just, there's a market here, there's an infrastructure here. This is this person's view of which bots are working or not. Debatable. I've got a list of about 60 that I track, but anything that doesn't come above 1 million in Alexa, I just don't even look at, yeah? So for me, it's about, I think this is because I do some investment stuff, it's about trying to keep an eye on what's happening in the quickest possible fashion, but also trying to identify what's the unique bit, what's actually going to take a chatbot or an AI system and embed it in us, in our habitual, our ritual, our addictions with the world as represented through the internet. And the reason I go down that route is that between 1982 and sort of here, I trained as a mechanical engineer, I then trained as a cabinet maker, then I trained as an anthropologist, yeah? And I came into IT and worked with the human-computer interface in about the most rough and tumble way as I possibly can. So for me, making everything, including people, is part of a manufacturing process. So all of these are chunks going along. I don't know that I really agree with the chunks, but that's not the point. It's the fact that somebody's actually caring about it. Again, all of these are all lines. We know these kids, the series and the Vivs and so on, but who are the rest of them? Where have they come from? I'll tell you where they've come from. It's not around here at the moment. You know? Right now, Bristol, the area, Bristol and Bath, that's make everything. You know, planes and trains and automobiles, Douglas motorcycles, all the rest of it kind of stuff. Could be picking up and attacking this, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. I've done a thing called Gaia recently with a team network. I don't work as a company elsewhere, my company. I don't have it branded on here because it's not my IP, this, yeah? Is about trying to work with a loose network of people. Did employ people, loads of them. I ended up running the business, not building stuff, which is what I really want to do. So this is a slide from before. This is for the investor side. Current trends. We've got a squillion, quite irritating systems popping up right now. A bit like AIML trying to pass the Turing test or the Leibniz Prize. Everybody takes a core and tries to do something sensible with it. And with all the NLP APIs out there right now, everybody's trying to drive some kind of NLP service into a conversation and expect that to be good, and it's not. They're very complicated things to do. They're very difficult things to do. So the platform creation's coming on board. There's an interesting differentiation. This, mathematicians and engineers, is a bit sort of invented, but it's an approach. It's an approach that has got this really interesting area in the middle. And over the next couple of years, this is where the black boxes, subservient to the glass boxes, will then start doing some really cool stuff. That's issues about privacy and relationships. There's some interesting chatbot developer communities. I'm looking to possibly start one of those later this year or early next year to try and take the open source system I use forwards. There's a lot going on West Coast America, but then there always is. That's why they all swim about in money all the time, you know. What we've also got is the beginning, and this is interesting, standards and regulations, yeah? Who got spanked for, was it, well, pick a currency, 13 billion. You know, Apple got spanked for 13 billion. That's about standards and regulations. That's one financial perspective on, is out of control. We've got to put some controls on it, you know, and this new market, this new conversational layer as it's opening up, we'll have to have some kind of regulations. And the academics are beginning that. There's people talking about rights for robots. I've seen a lot of people abuse chatbots over the years because I've built 50 of them. And in there I've seen an awful lot of people getting very irritated or arguing for the sake of it or just letting off steam. I've never actually built one which you could argue like a sort of Ministry of Silly Walks, like a Monty Python kind of here for an argument, but it'd be quite a fun thing to do, wouldn't it? If you had something which you could really vent at, really vent at, and know that it was just going to drop, crumble in front of you, yeah? It means you'd have to trust the person who built it, that it wasn't being kept, you know? Anyhow, tools being given to kids. I do a little bit of code club work for a local primary school, because it's just so cool. It's just such a fun thing to do with like youngsters. If anybody wants to do something crazy on a bit of a, code club, UK thing. And in the stuff that's come from MIT, so I'm not always nasty about Americans, yeah. They've got a thing called Splash Script. Can't remember. It's half term. So Scratch. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And in there, as one of the very early projects, is a chatbot. Super simple. Regex, not much more than regex really. So all it's doing is just like, polar stuff. Yeah, it's not creating a three-dimensional structure with elements within it which are like lottery balls. Yeah, and they're spun according to the way that the lottery machine works. That's the systems that I'm building, trying to build, and bringing people on board. But they're being given to kids, and the kids naturally go to it, and they love the fact that they can start talking to the system. So when you get Adam's craziness, yeah, and then you get this kind of craziness, you give it to kids, get into primary school, who knows what will happen? Because right now the internet, my humble opinion, is a mess. It's Wild West in the worst possible way. But people of all kinds recognise conversation is not metaphorical. If I'd had a nice holiday every time I'd heard somebody from a user experience, UX, XD, UI kind of conversation talk to me about conversations when they didn't mean conversations, I'd still be on holiday. Because it's not a metaphorical thing, it's an actual thing. This is one of the drivers. Can't remember when I put this together, 4 or 5 years ago. I tweaked it a bit just recently. The access has been since 1995. Dark surveillance. I don't know, it's in this kind of area here when we all started getting milked so much. Filter Bubble does a good job of that. Elo Parisa, or Yared Lanier, if you want to see who owns the internet. Although that guy looks like he's been smoking ganja since it was existed. So, and then up here we've got Surge, and I've got a hard stop here. I've got a point which I want to make at the end here, which is about, I really think that there is a point in which we can start looking at stopping this search thing, this Googling thing, this, Google is not a Hoover, Google is not a thing which is ubiquitous, it's something which has cleverly created a wall and then forced everybody to pay for it, So I think there's something which is about search being displaced by conversation. For me, that's the big flag, that's the big win, if we could get something that actually helped. Chatbots leading towards a manufacturing methodology. It's a long conversation, but it's the point that I'm actually making for Bristol and Bath, is that you can manufacture chatbots if you use the right cores, templates and approaches, including all different kinds of user types. And then this bit here, bright surveillance, I will give you my information if you give me something back, rather than better adverts. Because my idea of an advert is a fast forward button. I don't like them at all. So that for me is part of the drivers. And this is directly from the presentation that I gave to these investors recently. Manufacturing methods, flexibility, cross-discipline teams, non-linear conversational structures feed into the underlying process, but don't put lipstick on a pig. Yes? A lot of the chatbot companies I'm seeing right now are taking the current business process, slapping a bit of conversation on the top of it, and thinking it's adding something new. It's not, and it's not a very effective way to empower their business process, I believe. But I'm not the only person building, and I don't think I'm necessarily the best person building. Probably one of the people who's been building longest, mind you. So so this is a pitch towards people who are investing money. Companies that deal ethically and transparently. Do you, as an audience, think that people are beginning to get wary, or are you wary about privacy right now, about what happens with your data? Everybody's nodding, give or take. Yeah. I take screenshots as I go through my world. I took it on my Microsoft phone, and the damn thing now won't talk to my Microsoft computer. I really like Microsoft. I really want to love Microsoft. I had a big tantrum with them earlier on. It's one of those. I took a screenshot just as I was walking out the door, and it was a link from a thing called angel.co or something. And the amount of variables that were being passed through as I clicked from one email to another page was outrageous. It did make me happy though. The first link failed. It was a 404. Yeah. So I grabbed that as well, and they will reuse that without any kind of restriction in now this one here, semi-structured hybrid AI systems. This I think is the real juice, as I said earlier on. I don't know that I can read. I didn't do any schematics of it or anything. The system that I worked with a team recently to put up, which is Gaia, it's called GHAIA, and it's a general health AI system, but it's about augmenting information. It's about rather an artificial intelligence. It's about assisting and augmenting people, and it's this wrapping of the open source system, the ChatScript system, with Node.js, and then from there we're out into Twilio and all sorts of stuff. So it's a platform. We're going to make that open source reasonably soon. Yeah. Where's the money? Reducing or saving in human-to-human contact costs. Too much information, not enough people. Is there going to be a neo-Luddite thing coming up on this basis? Don't know. Do you think everybody's attention span is just a bit too much? They're not actually going to focus on it long enough to be irritated? I don't know. The bit I liked most out of She, was it Her? I can never get that right. The movie, Her, thank you, was where the computer wore the human. Yeah. And I thought that was the first intelligent and unusual thing that I'd seen in AI for a long period of time. And then I came across the notion of echo borgs. Has anybody come across those? This is another talk then, another day, an echo borg. This is true. And right at the bottom, user data, ... Yeah. If we're not being abused by it, it should be a good thing. How's voice recognition going to work? It's only going to work if it's personally stuck in your neck like a bagel fish. Yeah. And that's an application of hard AI. Still not sussed it. Anyhow, that's by the way. I'm wearing a HAL 9000 t-shirt. So for me, artificial intelligence is a reapplication of the infinite monkey syndrome. You know the infinite monkey paradigm? Yeah, good. I think it's in that kind of area. There's too many academic research drivers going on. The way that academics fund themselves is on the basis of the quality of the papers, or maybe the quantity of the papers, debatably. Corporate marketing BS. Oh, goodness, cognitive conversations, you know. You build a system that works a bit like a neural network, or you build a neural network that works a bit like a brain. It doesn't mean it's cognitive, does it? It just doesn't, you know. The corporate marketing, particularly the IBM folks, should all be taken out of spanked, in my personal view, and they're not all American, you know, for sure. So I think it's just one of those, you know, stupidity and ignorance. Where we are right now is that people are seriously thinking about trying to do something about as stupid as creating the fundamental processes for an atomic bomb. And they get funded. And people are putting a lot of money into it. I think that the other things that they've done that are not necessarily sensible make financial markets quicker. That bit of hard AI was built by an academic who gave it away. And what did it do? Smashed the entire world. 100%. Context comes from conversation, not corpus. This is my big beef with the hard AI, apart from the stupidity and the ignorance, in my humble opinion, is that an understanding of the structures in a corpus of information is not sufficient to give it a conversation. A conversation is a separate thing. But black boxes are good. I'd love to get voice recognition right. The conversational system, the chatbot system, the AI system that people expect, assuming it's not going to kill everybody, is a sandwich of, does it understand what you're saying? Can it then do anything sensible with it? And can it say something in a way that makes sense? And this bit, the text-to-speech bit, has been totally nailed. It's a company called, by many companies, but the company I found recently, when I did a demo system for the Big Silver Ball, hoping to get the Big Silver Ball, the planetarium, talking sometime soon, which is infotainment stuff, which is what keeps me sane, like you doing really strange things with squirrels, Adam, to be frank with you. So the text-to-speech stuff, Cereproc is the company, and they do beautiful language stuff, and they apply synthetic speech markup language and some additions, so you can get a Scottish accent which puts in och either new and so on. Yeah? All the interstitials are in there. It's beautiful. It's a manufacturing methodology. Yeah, as I keep saying, because it's Bristol, and I think we can manufacture this. So, and then the bottom line here: real reason for open sourcing AI. I don't have to quote the hand here because this is more of a fun thing, and I need to look at you. When I was doing this pitch recently, it was all remote, so I had all the screens and notes up. There was a quote from the local European head of Watson saying, we turn off the deep learning because we don't know what it's going to do. And I see more and more of this. I see more and more people going, this is the real reason for open sourcing AI, you know, is that they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how it works. It's a black box. How's it going to be useful? Infinite monkey syndrome, yeah? However, I still think that there's got to be something of some value in there. So primary cell. 2 seconds on this. I put this together a long time ago. Third iteration, 2013. I think I built it 5 years ago, before really big data had came up. I think I added that, you know. So this was more big data, and I don't have the picture of, say, big data one more time. Have you seen that meme? This is the guys out of Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, yeah. Samuel L. Jackson's got the gun and it just says, say big data one more time. Yeah. I should have put that one in there actually, it would have worked, wouldn't it? So in here was my taking on what we needed at this point. This was for an educational system which was conversational. The website was generated on the basis of the person's conversation with it. Education is quite a tough thing to get into. It's like trying to sell to politicians. Actually, it's probably easier to sell to a politician than it is to make an educational thing. And all of this stuff here was where I was at that moment in time, and I looked at it on the basis of coming and talking to you folks. I had to add this, machine intelligence, yeah, and then I had to add that. Ooh. Because I think really there's this kind of expectation that it's all going to go seriously tits up. Yeah. Seeing this one, yeah. Popped up in my email earlier on. I thought it was entirely relevant, so I've just brought it along. I don't have anything to say about the syntax or anything, you know, it's just one of those. So, what's the big target? I reckon there are, in the region of 40,000 modules, 40,000 complex conversations. And a module is a mixture of active and passive, proactive and reactive, and interactive conversation as if it was a human. Synthesized, which I've talked about, multi-people, which I've talked about. These are the core elements here: academics, business, clinicians, working in healthcare at the moment, so obviously it's clinicians, but it could be anybody, general public, and then techies, us folks, you know. And everybody's got fingers in different areas, but, you know, for me, the module is ethically about this relationship, this real relationship. So the filter bubble stuff on the one side, which is about really people beginning to recognise. A few years ago he brought that out, not that long, 3-4 years. But on the other side you've got a lovely thing called the media equation. And this was a book written by two characters, Reeves and Naz. And this was late 90s, I think, I should know. I don't actually have the note here, which is a bit rubbish. And what Reeves and Naz were trying to say was that people make a relationship with their hardware, you know. Swear at their TVs, you know, kick cars, you know. And I think there's a real truth in there, and this feeds this notion that it's going to be a relationship with the conversational layer for it to work, and that's going to be quite a paradigm shift, yeah. And I got sucked into an adult evening at Bristol, before you go too far with that as a thought. Ruth Murray, crazy woman who works over there, asked me whether I could bring down some self-learning systems or some chatbot systems which people could flirt with, yeah? See how they got on with it. Perfect idea. I mean, really, the anthropologist in me is like, great, I'm in an ethnography. I'm a participant observer in people trying to flirt with random bits of chatbots. So I grabbed Mitsuku and 2 of Rollo's, and I haven't apologised to them yet, because I think they got some pretty serious stick that night. And on the side of that, I tried to get people to flirt with their own phones. Yeah, Siri, Cortana, Google Now. Oh, just quick show of hands. Who actually talks to their phones? Anybody got a relationship? Not bad, not bad. Slowly getting it. Normally it's like 2 or 3. It was about 8 maybe. So I tried to get somebody to, or anybody really, to flirt with their phones. Yeah, nobody would do it. Nobody would do it. Nobody would get over that threshold. The idea that you're beginning to build that kind of relationship, which is something which is a utility, I think actually feeds towards the fact that conversation is a utility. We just need to find the right place to do it. And if you bolt in VR and augmented reality and a HoloLens, assuming that talks to my PC, then who can say? You know, it's like all sorts of craziness can happen. So back to the top here, 40,000 modules. I reckon there's 1,000 in healthcare and well-being, which is where I'm focused on right now. And by that I mean hydration would be a module. All conversation about hydration. In context, personally, tied in with people's personal hardware, yeah? Personal hardware array or a clinical hardware array, and there's more and more of this going on. Cognitive hospital stuff, not so sure about this. Did everybody get the WhatsApp? Whoever's on WhatsApp here, get the update. They're about to share information with Facebook. That came on today. the Information Commissioner's Office, or whichever one it is, was on it the next day. Yeah, and with the EU, the big councils and so on, the big players beginning to take on the American corporations, we're coming close to this kind of thing being a bit, are you sure what you're going to do? Take a black box, point it at a child with cancer and hope it does the right thing? It's just not acceptable. Yeah. So, other sectors' information domains for this 40,000 modules is random, it's a finger in the air. Am I close by? Who can say? So, what else we got? Oh, we've got the wrong button. That's what we got. Lovely. So what's going to stop this simple building 40,000 complex conversations that need to be created for this conversational layer to happen? How long it takes to make them? This is a long pitch. You could take all of the previous people and cobble them all together, and there will be a lot of mergers and acquisitions. That's why the finance people want to talk. But for me, the most important thing is the tolerance of the general public to new term machine stupidity. And if I'd managed to get my phone to talk to even my laptop or my desktop, I was going to get some pictures that I just randomly picked up off of my phone recently showing incredibly stupid machine-like things. Conversation is not content, I think I've done that. Big data, I don't like big data, I'm not happy with it. I think it's noise, I think it's created by surveillance machines, and really when it comes down to it, it's like trying to take stock of all of the pubs in the world at the worst possible moment when everybody's really drunk. If you've got everybody sitting around a dinner party eating parsley, I suppose it would be a different kind of thing. But so the major bottlenecks to create these 40,000 modules, 1,000 in healthcare, I reckon 40,000, because clearly some bits in healthcare are going to work in other sectors and so on, are the people whose conversations will become people by proxy. And this is a term I've been banging on about for a while, along with botsonality, which is probably not a good one. This is the idea that a bot has a personality, so it's a botsonality, right? No, I'm hoping that never sticks actually, but I'm still trying to sell it. So it's the people by proxy is if you're taking on a team of people and you're going to give them the kind of enhancements that an AI interface, a front end, conversational front end would give them, there are going to be some issues with it. So this is a bottleneck. The academics and unicorn searching people who are looking for the all singing, all dancing, how low thousand, corporate marketing machines, commercialization realities. For me, this is actually about microeconomics. This is about tiny monetizations going on. The Bitcoin thing sort of got a bit shot in the head, so I do wonder whether we could have a new kind of monetization which fits in with the kind of selling of the privacy if people will build the relationships. There's all this layer, and then you've still got to build 40,000 modules on top of it. And the last bit, I stuck this in as a reflection of the research that I did. I saw so many companies, and it's 15 guys, all looking really bored, around a table. And I'm like, where are the women? Where are the women? There are actually women here. Yay! It's just one of those, I think if anywhere we're going to put, round. Chatbots to the next level. Healthcare and education, they're clearly right now. There's too much of this information scattered about, there's no standards, no regulations. Trying to get it right and making it personal is important. Infotainment, that's the bit that keeps me sensible. This area here, the quiet conversation, is taking the big data and that layer that you have to click through when you go from anything digital to anything else digital nowadays, where the chatbots start communicating with each other. Not in a woo-ha-ha sense of the term, although there's clearly a fair bit of that going on right now, and there will be more of it until the standards and regulations come down. But there's the ability for, say, a chatbot of mine to be able to go and talk to chatbot of other people's or chatbots of other companies and come back to me with information, which would be great. I read something today that broke my heart, really did. I'm not sure how I tagged it, because I tagged all of the pages that I think are really super valuable, and it's a bloke who had made a chatbot of his girlfriend, who died 7 months ago. And he took all the texts that they had and all the email conversations, and he fudged it into a chatbot in some way, which was probably a bit hybrid, might well have been a, dump in the corpus and try and make sense of it. And the first thing he said when he turned it on, he couldn't think of what to say. He spent all this time, and he said, higher. And there's a pause while it was processing, so it must have been a pure AI rather than a applied AI, because the response times are so bad. Anyhow, He said higher, and it came back with, "Oi, fuckwit." And that was it. and it was her. That's what she used to say. You know, it's like, so what is the quiet conversation? I don't know, really. You know, if the internet's in a state now, over the next few years, this quiet conversation is going to be an area of standards, regulations, monetisation, micropayments, huge use. The ability for people to talk about anything, to get distilled wisdom, for professionals to receive distilled information from patients, rather than spending their 8 minutes, or is it 13? They're arguing for 5 more at the moment, aren't they, the doctors? They could actually get an understanding of what was happening before they went through the process. So, what is the desired outcomes? I would say, deaths. Deaths of advertising. Don't care. If I want to buy something, I want somebody to tell me what it is I should buy on the basis of their relationship with me. And if that's a chatbot, that's fine for me. I'm sick and tired of my Firefox, I love Firefox, gluing up when I get onto certain websites where there's so many scripts, there's so much advertising, you know? And can you punch your way through it? You can't. I mean, we all know about the ad blocker thing that's going on, the blocking the ad blocking ad block thing, you know? So search. Google is the Hoover. I love that as an irony, really, because that's what it's done. It's hoovered all the information up, hasn't it? You know. I wonder if the Americans actually saw the irony; they would have killed it at birth. But you know, the abused privacy, the information which is being just—it's really not good. The missing response to surveys. This is possibly a bit lighter. Do you know you get those surveys that come up saying, "Would you like to answer our survey? Yes or no?" Yeah. If that was a chatbot, you'd be able to say, "No, fuck off." And I think really it's that kind of missing response to surveys. And some of the systems I've built have been surveys implicitly. So you have a conversation, some ways you would if you're talking as a human being, which is why you need to make them like human beings. Not bits of maths, yeah, debatably, but yeah, is that you can pick up this information as you go along and then apply it in due course. What else should die, will die? No idea. But we have a corresponding births, yeah? I think I've covered most of these already. Microeconomics, yeah? Keep banging on about it. There's something about a little bit, a tiny bit of money, like, you know, the cost of a chocolate bar or a chewing gum or something, you know? Just to get that layer right, you know? How it works and how we keep it away from the gamblers, I mean, the financial services industry is a bit difficult to say, but open source development efforts, 25 years in Linux, so this week, last week, whenever it was, you know, is there a Linux moment? Is there a Linux parallel going through to those previous slides, which I've not unpicked? I've got my own list which I'm trying to sort of maintain because I don't just do investment talks, I like to build stuff, that's the objective here. Privacy, banged on about that for another, but I like this new acronym, You Own Your Own Life. Heads back onto you own your own words from the very birth of the internet, back when GeoCities was about and all that kind of stuff. The reason I'm even in the internet is I did an ethnography in 1997 in the first commercial virtual world, Meridian 59. I went into it on a 28.8 dial-up modem, and I spent time fighting Dungeons and Dragons and loving the fact that it was anonymous. I didn't know who these people were. You know, when I'm standing by the side of a big ghost encampment and somebody flies past me with a sword on a little green Acer, you know, like it's a tiny thing, less information in that Acer, tiny little screen, and I actually got a rush of like, hey, and I'm not an aggressive person at all. Cheeky possibly, but you know, it was that ability for it to just push my buttons, yeah? In a bar, in a virtual world in 1997, and 2 avatars go across the screen, 15-inch screen, go across the screen in like silver leotards, a bit like Shambhala, yeah, if you've had that before, yeah? Which I was at last week actually, which is why there's still a lot of glitter around the edges, and I remember looking at it and going, wow, and then thinking, whoa, who's that? I don't know, I don't care. You own your own life, so I wonder whether there's some births in there as well. And the drivers for this is totally random. Found this earlier on today when I was trying to put something really fresh into this presentation. And it was that, I didn't even put where it came from. No, I did actually. It's a TechCrunch thing, so it's part of TechCrunch. And it was the idea that you can produce this amount of text and consume this amount of text. And you speak and hear about the same lines. And I'm like, I think it's there, isn't it? This is the rationale for speech recognition, text output. Yeah? stick it on your glasses, stick it on the wall, stick it in augmented reality, do something with it, but take the conversational layer and do something really cool with it. Because in 2002, last slide, in 2002, Ananova, anybody know Ananova? £95 million was paid by Orange in 2000 for Ananova, and she delivered a bit of news information. Yeah, 95 million, 16 years ago. Yeah, it lasted till about, what was it now? I never remember this because I thought it was like just broken and never worked, but I actually had a look at it, and it landed. It was available until 2004. And then it's just died, and it's just one of those, you know, this has been tried and been tried and been tried, and you know, and really, who knows this one? Max Headroom. Yeah, a few people with less hair, you know, or more hair dye, or both, you know. This, when I was a child, we weren't sure whether it was a human or an AI. We had no idea whether it was a robot or anything, and I think that and what it was like growing up in the sort of 70s and so on, with the imminent threat of like global destruction, you know, all teenagers have anxiety, and ours was, we're all going to be blown to shreds with nuclear power, and we didn't know whether this was a human or an AI or anything. And the point I'm making right at the end here is that it really doesn't matter whether it's a human, which this was, I believe, or maybe it was Father Christmas, yeah, or whether it was an AI. It doesn't matter whether it's got an avatar, it doesn't matter whether the uncanny valley is going to sweep down again, you know, on the basis that people are beginning to lose contact of whether it's a human or a computer, or vice versa. There's some interesting work being done by Kevin Warwick, Professor Kevin Warwick, and a Dr. Huma Shah. Kevin Warwick's the fellow who had RFID buried in his arm, yeah, like a long time ago, before RFID even sort of got onto the market. So sort of cyborg kind of playing things. And the point they're making, and the point I'm continuing to see in chatbot developments and people's relationship with AI, is that people are confusing people with machines, as much as they are confusing machines with people. And the point I'm making is, who cares? Let's just make cool things in a conversational way that doesn't exist yet. Or maybe it does just beginning to start. And that's what I came to talk to today.